Consistency is the real difference maker because success rarely arrives in a single moment of inspiration or brilliance. Most people are held back not because they lack talent, intelligence, or opportunity, but because they cannot stay committed long enough for their effort to produce visible results. Consistency gives small daily actions the time they need to compound into something powerful. When someone commits to their goals every day, even in small increments, their improvement becomes inevitable. Consistency turns average effort into extraordinary outcomes simply because it stays in motion long enough to evolve into mastery. The reason consistency changes everything is that it removes the emotional instability of waiting for the perfect moment to feel ready. Motivation comes and goes, but consistency builds a structure that keeps a person moving forward whether they feel inspired or not. Once someone learns to act despite their mood, they unlock a different level of potential. They stop chasing feelings and start pursuing growth. Over time, the discipline of consistent effort reshapes the mind, strengthens character, and transforms work ethic into something powerful and unstoppable. Consistency also rewrites self-image. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you build confidence, trust, and inner strength. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through instead of someone who starts and stops. The opposite is also true. Each broken commitment doesn't just damage progress, it damages belief in oneself. When a person becomes consistent, they don't just change their habits, they change how they see themselves, and that new identity becomes the foundation for higher levels of success. Many people underestimate the power of small, repeated actions because they judge tomorrow's results based on today's visible progress. They think nothing is happening. They assume their effort is too small. But the truth is that consistency is often invisible in the beginning. Growth is happening below the surface, like roots forming before a tree breaks through the ground. Someone who keeps going, even when it looks like nothing is changing, eventually crosses the threshold where progress becomes visible and undeniable. The world often praises the breakthrough, but ignores the long period of quiet, private work that made it possible. A speaker who commands a stage didn't wake up with the ability to move an audience they practiced for months or years when no one was watching. A business owner who generates wealth didn't do it in a weekend. They made consistent decisions, improved skills, and built systems every single day. Consistency is the secret that creates what looks like sudden success. Consistency also protects a person from distraction. When someone is committed to daily progress, opportunities that do not align with their mission become easy to ignore. They are not pulled in every direction because their daily actions keep them oriented toward their long-term vision. Momentum becomes like a shield against confusion, and clarity becomes a natural byproduct of continuous effort. People who are consistent learn faster because repetition reinforces learning. Every day they practice, they refine their approach, correct mistakes, and make adjustments. They gain experience. It cannot be acquired from theory alone. Knowledge becomes skill. Skill becomes confidence. Confidence becomes results. The person who acts daily gets better automatically simply because they refuse to stop. Consistency builds resilience. When challenges come, a consistent person does not collapse under pressure because they have trained themselves to keep moving regardless of circumstances. They learn that obstacles are not signals to stop, but invitations to grow stronger. Their emotional endurance expands, and problems that once seemed overwhelming become manageable. Consistency also eliminates the fear of starting over. A consistent person is always in motion. They no longer waste time restarting from zero because they never quit long enough to lose progress. Their upward trajectory may be slow, but it is steady. This steady movement is what separates them from the majority who sprint for a short time, burn out, and then disappear. Most people overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in a year of daily action. Consistency turns 1 year into a transformation timeline. It provides a powerful multiplier effect where each day builds upon the previous one. In this way, the future becomes predictable. If someone shows up daily, improvement is not a possibility, it is a guarantee. Consistency builds credibility. The world trusts someone who repeatedly demonstrates commitment. Whether in business, relationships, career, or personal growth, people naturally follow those who prove their reliability through consistent action. Trust is not gained through promises, but through performance over time. Consistency strengthens character. It forces a person to choose discipline over comfort, growth over excuses, and progress over procrastination. Every time someone chooses to show up instead of making an excuse, they defeat the part of themselves that wants to remain average. That daily victory, repeated over months and years, creates a leader. Consistency also simplifies success. When someone commits to the same routine every day, they no longer waste time debating whether they should or shouldn't take action. Decision fatigue disappears because action becomes automatic. Instead of thinking about whether to work, they simply work. Their focus sharpens because their mind is no longer negotiating with itself. Even in seasons with slow results, consistency ensures that something is always happening behind the scenes. The person is developing discipline, strengthening habits, learning through repetition, and refining their process. Progress is not always visible, but it is always happening when daily effort continues. Consistency is the proof of seriousness. Anyone can want success. Anyone can start. Anyone can talk about dreams. But very few people keep going long enough for the outcome to manifest. The world does not reward intention or desire. It rewards the individual who continues to show up day after day, especially when no one else is paying attention or offering applause. Consistency transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary results by giving time a chance to multiply the investment made through small daily actions. Focusing on personal development instead of external validation is the shift that separates those who rise from those who remain stuck. When a person lives for approval, applause, or recognition, their direction is controlled by opinions instead of purpose. They become reactive instead of intentional, chasing acceptance instead of mastery. But when they shift their focus inward, growth becomes the priority, and they begin strengthening the only thing in life they can truly control, who they are becoming. Personal development means investing energy not in being seen, but in being better. And that investment always produces long-term rewards that external praise can never match. When someone measures their progress by the reactions of others, their journey becomes unstable. Some people will support them, some won't, and many won't care either way. So if validation is the fuel, momentum will rise and fall with the mood of the crowd. But focusing on self-growth builds internal momentum that continues even when there is no encouragement. A person who improves for themselves becomes unstoppable because they no longer require permission to grow, permission to act, or permission to believe. Their commitment comes from within, and that kind of commitment is far stronger than anything driven by public approval. Personal development strengthens internal identity. When someone looks inward, they begin to identify strengths they never recognize and weaknesses they never address. They learn to build instead of compare, to create instead of compete, and to grow instead of seek validation. The moment a person realizes that self-improvement is more important than being noticed, they gain the ability to build a version of themselves that does not depend on external circumstances. They develop skills, maturity, and discipline that no one can take away. Validation may come and go, but character remains. Focusing on oneself removes the distraction of competition. When someone constantly looks to others, they measure their worth by someone else's timeline, success, appearance, or journey. This creates insecurity and pressure because comparison always leads to one of two outcomes: feeling inferior or feeling superior. Neither one contributes to real growth. But when someone focuses on personal development, they understand that the real competition is not the world. It is the person they were yesterday. That understanding builds healthy ambition instead of insecurity. Personal development also encourages accountability. When someone stops blaming circumstances, other people, or lack of opportunities, they finally take ownership of their progress. They begin to see life not as something happening to them, but something happening through them. They take responsibility for their learning, their habits, their daily routine, and their environment. That shift creates empowerment. They no longer wait for things to improve. They improve themselves, and in doing so, their life begins to transform from the inside outward. When people pursue external validation, they often invest more time in appearing successful than becoming successful. They want to look the part without doing the work. But personal development forces someone to build substance before image. They dive into books, mentors, skills, training, routines, and self-discipline. They work behind the scenes long before anyone sees the result. They are not concerned with looking impressive today because they know they will be undeniable tomorrow. This mindset creates the type of success that lasts, not the kind that fades as soon as attention shifts away. Focusing inward also builds emotional maturity. Someone who seeks validation reacts emotionally when approval is missing. Criticism can stop them. Rejection can discourage them. A lack of praise can cause them to question their path. But personal development builds resilience. When someone improves their mind, their heart, and their character, they learn that opposition is a part of the journey. Challenges are simply training for the next level, not proof that they are unworthy. They develop a stability that external voices cannot disrupt. Self-growth creates clarity. A person who constantly looks outward becomes confused about what they should pursue because the world has infinite opinions. Everyone has a viewpoint, and many of those viewpoints contradict one another. But personal development clears mental clutter. When someone develops themselves, their values become stronger, their vision becomes clearer, and their standards become higher. They start making decisions that align with who they are becoming rather than decisions that please the crowd. When someone focuses on personal development, they also learn that confidence is not a gift, it is a result. Confidence grows when a person sees themselves improving, gaining skills, mastering challenges, and getting better day by day. Confidence built from internal development is stronger than confidence gained from external praise because it is rooted in truth, not opinion. No one can take away confidence that is earned. Focusing on oneself builds long-term consistency because growth becomes the reward. When someone measures success by how much they have improved instead of how many compliments they received, they always have a reason to continue. Every day becomes an opportunity to sharpen a skill, strengthen a mindset, or build a new habit. Growth becomes a lifestyle, not a moment. Even on days without recognition, they feel progress, and that progress becomes fuel for their next step. Personal development increases value. The marketplace pays for value, not desire. The world rewards capability, not potential. The more someone improves themselves mentally, spiritually, intellectually, financially, the more valuable they become. And once someone increases their value, opportunities begin to seek them instead of them chasing opportunities. People recognize a person who has grown, even if they never ask to be noticed. When someone focuses inward, they reduce the emotional need for approval. Instead of feeling discouraged when others do not validate them, they develop the ability to validate themselves through effort, discipline, and measurable improvement. They stop needing applause to keep moving. Their progress becomes a commitment, not a performance. They learn to live out their purpose, even if no one is clapping. Personal development also improves relationships. When someone becomes a stronger version of themselves, they show up better for others. They are more patient, wise, disciplined, confident, understanding, and supportive. They no longer drain relationships by seeking constant validation because they have built their identity internally. This makes their connections healthier and their interactions more grounded. Focusing inward leads to higher standards. When someone is committed to their own growth, they stop accepting environments, conversations, habits, and associations that hold them back. They raise the bar for what they expect from themselves and from life. They are less likely to tolerate excuses because they see what they are capable of when they stay committed to growth. Personal development removes pressure to hurry. Someone who compares themselves to others feels behind. But someone who focuses inward understands that every journey has its own timing. They realize that progress done with mastery is better than progress done with speed. They learn to embrace consistency, patience, and process. Their growth becomes deep instead of shallow, and that depth becomes the foundation for everything they build. Private commitment creates public success because true transformation begins long before anyone is watching. When a person is working alone, practicing their craft, refining their mindset, and building their foundation in silence, they're developing the skills and character that later produce visible results. The world often only sees the highlight moment, the big achievement, the breakthrough, the applause. But what they don't see are the countless hours of discipline and dedication that happen behind closed doors. Private work lays the groundwork for public accomplishment. And without that internal investment, external success has nothing to stand on. Working privately strengthens a person's authenticity. When someone grinds for recognition, they become motivated by performance. But when they grind for improvement, they become motivated by purpose. They learn to show up not because someone is watching, but because they made a promise to themselves. This shift is powerful because discipline built in private becomes confidence in public. When a person knows they have earned their success through consistent effort, they walk differently, speak differently, and carry a presence that cannot be faked or borrowed. Private commitment builds mastery. No one becomes great by doing something occasionally. Musicians practice scales for years before performing on stage. Athletes train in empty gyms before they play in full stadiums. Entrepreneurs build systems, skills, and understanding long before the world begins to pay attention. Private work allows people to make mistakes without judgment, refine strategy without pressure, and grow without comparison. Mastery is born in solitude, not in the spotlight. Working privately also protects a person from distraction. When the world is not watching, there is no noise of opinions, criticism, or praise. A person has the freedom to focus on the process instead of the perception. They are not performing, they are building. That level of calm clarity produces deeper development. Without the distraction of trying to look successful, they can instead focus on becoming successful in reality. Private commitment strengthens self-respect. Every time a person keeps working when no one else knows, they reinforce an internal message: I am someone who follows through. That message becomes the foundation of confidence, identity, and personal belief. Most people struggle not because they lack skill, but because they do not believe they can finish what they start. Private discipline cures that. It rewires the brain to associate effort with progress and progress with identity. Private commitment builds consistency because accountability becomes internal. When someone only works when others are around, their growth is unstable. They show up when watched and fade when alone. But when someone works privately out of personal standard, they no longer need applause, encouragement, or alignment from others. They become their own source of momentum. And that internal stability is one of the strongest predictors of long-term success. Another reason private work leads to public success is that results compound quietly before they explode publicly. Someone may train for months with no visible change, but then suddenly it all clicks. A business may show little progress on the outside while systems, skills, and processes are being built underneath. Then one day the world says that success came out of nowhere, but the person who lived it knows that it came from hundreds of unseen hours of commitment. Public success is simply delayed evidence of private work. Private commitment also builds resilience. When a person works without applause, they learn how to push through boredom, fatigue, discouragement, and lack of inspiration. They prove to themselves that mission is more powerful than mood. This emotional conditioning prepares them for the challenges that come with bigger stages and bigger goals. Someone who can perform when no one is watching will always outperform someone who can only perform when praised. Private work forces a person to confront their weaknesses honestly. In the spotlight, people often hide flaws behind talent or charisma. In private, there is no hiding. The gaps, limitations, and areas that need growth become undeniable. This honesty leads to improvement. A person can refine, adjust, and evolve with precision. By the time they go public, they have already handled the internal challenges that would have otherwise sabotaged their success. Working privately builds humility. It protects a person from the illusion that success is instant or automatic. They experience firsthand the effort required, the repetition involved, and the sacrifices necessary. This humility keeps success in perspective and prevents arrogance. A humble person can receive applause without becoming dependent on it. Their value is built on who they became, not on who people say they are. Private commitment fuels long-term sustainability. Many people rise quickly because of natural talent or opportunity, but without a strong foundation, they collapse just as fast. Those who build in private create layers of strength: habit strength, mindset strength, emotional strength, and character strength. These layers allow them to not only succeed, but to stay successful. Private commitment also creates alignment between personal standards and personal results. When someone knows they have done the work, they expect success instead of hoping for it. Their expectations rise because their preparation proves they are capable. This alignment is powerful because expectation shapes performance. A person who expects to win behaves differently from someone who merely wishes for success. Private consistency also makes public performance easier. When someone has rehearsed thousands of times in private, the public moment simply becomes a continuation of what they already do. Pressure does not overwhelm them because repetition has made excellence natural. They are not performing at their limit. They are performing at their normal. When a person works consistently in private, they also develop a deep connection to their craft. They understand why they do what they do. They fall in love with the process, not just the result. This love sustains them when success is slow, when challenges arise, and when recognition is minimal. Passion built in private lasts longer than excitement created in public. Most importantly, private commitment ensures that when success finally arrives, the person is ready for it. They have the skill to maintain it, the humility to appreciate it, the discipline to grow it, and the emotional strength to carry it. Public success becomes the natural harvest of seeds planted quietly, consistently, and faithfully behind the scenes. Success is a lifestyle, not a moment, because real transformation is not created by one big decision, but by thousands of small, intentional choices made daily. Many people wait for a single breakthrough event, a promotion, a business idea, a moment of luck to change everything. But true success doesn't arrive suddenly. It grows gradually from habits, discipline, mindset, routines, and standards that become a part of who a person is. When success becomes a lifestyle, it is not something someone experiences once, it is something they live in continuously, regardless of external circumstances. A moment of motivation may inspire action, but only consistent lifestyle choices create sustained results. A person doesn't become healthy from one workout. They become healthy when fitness becomes part of their lifestyle. A business doesn't grow from one idea. It grows when excellence becomes part of the company's daily culture. A person doesn't become wealthy from one achievement. They become wealthy when wise decisions, skill development, and disciplined habits become normal. Success, when lived daily, compounds into something remarkable over time. When success becomes a lifestyle, it operates even on the days when emotions fluctuate. People who live in a success mindset don't depend on feeling inspired to take action. They take action because it is who they are. They don't ask, do I feel like doing it today? They ask, what must be done today to stay aligned with my goals? They replace emotional decisions with intentional choices. This shift from feeling driven to purpose driven is what separates temporary progress from permanent elevation. A momentary focus on success often leads to inconsistency. Someone starts strong, works for a while, gets distracted, stops, and starts again. But when success becomes a lifestyle, the work does not stop. Just because progress is slow or results are delayed, the person keeps building because the commitment is bigger than the discouragement. They don't pause every time life becomes difficult. They adapt, adjust, and continue. Success becomes a journey that never pauses simply because conditions are less than ideal. Success as a lifestyle also creates automatic momentum. When habits are built into daily routines, action becomes easier. A person no longer debates whether they should do the work. It becomes as normal as brushing their teeth or going to sleep. This reduces mental resistance and decision fatigue. Instead of using energy to decide whether to take action, they use energy to improve the quality of their action. Consistency becomes natural, and excellence becomes inevitable. When someone lives success instead of chasing it, their standards rise. They expect more from themselves, not out of pressure, but out of belief. They stop tolerating environments, habits, and decisions that slow them down. They stop spending time with people who drain their energy. They stop entertaining excuses that keep them average. Their daily life becomes structured around growth, not survival. Higher standards create higher outcomes because they filter out everything that does not align with the life they are building. Success as a lifestyle also changes identity. A person who only chases success thinks, if I work hard, I might succeed. But a person who lives success thinks, I succeed because of who I am and how I show up every day. Identity becomes the engine behind performance. When identity changes, behavior follows automatically. A writer writes, a leader leads, a learner studies, a champion trains. It becomes natural because the behavior is tied to identity, not pressure. People who treat success as a lifestyle learn to value process over reward. They understand that the journey is where the skills, resilience, and wisdom are developed. The reward is just a visible result of that journey. They embrace repetition because repetition builds mastery. They understand that greatness is not found in extraordinary actions, but in ordinary actions done consistently over time. They are not impatient because they recognize that time is part of the equation. Success as a lifestyle also creates stability. When success is built on habits and systems, external circumstances have less power. A person still grows whether people support them or not. They still elevate whether the economy is up or down. They still progress whether others notice or ignore them. Their advancement is not dependent on the external world. It is driven by internal decisions. This internal drive makes them unshakable. People who only want success in moments tend to burn out because they rely on bursts of extreme effort. They sprint, collapse, recover, sprint again, and remain in a cycle of exhaustion. But someone who lives success paces themselves. They build sustainable systems, routines, and strategies that allow them to keep progressing without hitting the wall. They learn how to work smarter, not just harder. Longevity becomes more important than intensity, and as a result, they last longer and achieve more. Success as a lifestyle also reshapes relationships. When a person becomes committed to growth, they attract others who are also growth-oriented. Their circle changes. They begin having conversations that elevate them instead of entertain them. They move away from people who gossip, complain, and make excuses. They begin to value connections based on purpose, integrity, and growth. As the saying goes, success has energy, and that energy influences the environment they build around themselves. Living success daily also increases personal value. The marketplace pays for value, not potential. When someone constantly improves, they become more valuable in how they think, what they can do, and how they show up. People notice not because they try to be noticed, but because competence is hard to ignore. Opportunities begin to appear because value makes a person noticeable without effort. They no longer chase opportunities. Opportunities begin chasing them. A lifestyle of success also demands personal responsibility. Someone who lives success doesn't blame circumstances, luck, or other people for where they are. They understand that life is shaped not by what happens, but by how they respond. They take ownership of their thoughts, habits, and outcomes. Responsibility becomes empowering because once they realize they created their past, they also realize they can create their future. When success becomes a lifestyle, setbacks lose their power. Challenges become learning opportunities rather than reasons to quit. Failure becomes feedback. Discomfort becomes growth. The person understands that adversity is not a sign to stop, but a sign that they are expanding. They keep moving because they know that everything they overcome prepares them for the level they are stepping into. Most importantly, success as a lifestyle means the journey never really ends. There is always another skill to sharpen, another habit to build, another level of excellence to reach, and another version of oneself to become. The hunger for growth becomes part of who they are. Success stops being something they chase occasionally and becomes the way they think, live, and operate every single day.